Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine. Today I would like to talk a little about injustice trauma and how it is linked to low self-esteem and self-worth and self-hate. Injustice and abuse trauma is very, emotionally tough and devastating for children to experience. It is so overwhelming and can cause strong emotionally and behavioral reaction afterwards. Children internalize this experience of injustice, regardless of whether it is happening to themselves or it is happening to their parents. To start hating themselves as a response to trauma exposure is actually a survival strategy, which will help them at the time of trauma and also after that to survive and not to collapse. So it stems from the fact that it is just too overwhelming, mentally intolerable, and totally cruel for children to recognize and believe that their most important caregivers, usually their parents, are not kind or able to take care of them. So such an acknowledgement of reality can be associated with a subjective feeling of collapse or almost death, since children are literally dependent to empathetic and kind adults to survive. So between the two options of imagining their parents as incapable of giving them care and affection and also existing something fundamentally wrong and flawed with them, they take the second options. Children are not capable of cognitively processing and analyzing the situation which is unfair or full of abuse and injustice in a way that we as adults do. They communicate and understand things around them with their bodies, right? So instead of putting like this, that, well, I have got an emotionally immature parent, or that they are suffering themselves with their own wounds and traumas and so on, they feel deeply the pain and internalize the pain and conclude that there is something bad about them, and that is why these kind of painful things is always around them and happens a lot. So this strategy entails a hope, although such a hope is not going to fulfill, but it functions as a protection for the child because it gives the child a sense of control, actually an illusion of control, since it creates the feeling of probably being able to control and manage the situation if it happens next time, because then it will be about them, and it is only themselves and their little bodies which they can have control over and focus on, and not about their parents or other people who are very scary and not controllable and predictable. So there is a wisdom and intelligence in such a strategy, as it is supposed to protect the child. But the sad fact is that such emotional traumas entrench children's brains and create psychological scars which can manifest in the form of psychological conditions and disorders such as hypervigilance, self-critical thoughts and negative assumptions and thoughts about personal values and self as a person, and disconnection from self, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and you name it, so on. Here I would like to share an example from therapy room with you. For a few years ago, I had a young client who sought help due to feelings of having very low self-worth and self-esteem, and following relationship and social problems he was experiencing in his personal and social life. He said that he felt lonely and he could never find a close friend for himself. Despite trying hard to make close friends, he could never maintain the relationships. His experiences were that people tend to leave him, and therefore he does not have opportunity to deepen his contact, his relationship with other people. Felt like an empty place in his heart. He realized that he was very vulnerable when it comes to relationships and friendships in general. So he could see that he's not prepared for having friendship, and his own tendencies and vulnerabilities have also important contributing roles in such a in making and creating such a challenge. He told me that he could for example run from escape from closer and deeper level of friendships. When I asked him what he exactly do what he exactly tends to do when the friendship is about to move to a deeper level, he said that he could, for example, send his friends lots of messages and ask if they are willing to hang out, or that, for example, he is missing them, and so on. So his general experience was that he will be rejected or somewhat ignored, as his friends usually pretended not to see his messages, or they answered shortly or very formally. So my next question was, okay, how did he usually feel in these situations? He said that these experiences breaks his heart, definitely, and he gets restless and anxious. And he can, for example, check out his messaging boxes several times, and he gets disappointed and very sad. We had, of course, a long chat about his experiences and the typical, cognitive and emotional processes that he went through in such situations. Then I tried, summarizing and wrapping it up and bringing up a hypothesis which might explain his experiences. I asked him if this is true, that he had gotten kind of reaction pattern by which he tries hardly to catch other people in relationship, but then instead of being met and welcomed by people, he experiences that his friends start disappointing him. And perhaps when he figures that they want to get close to him, he unconsciously start to escape them. Well, that made sense to him, and it was sort of representation of his reaction pattern in his relationship with other people. I felt that this is something that had definitely a deeper root, and therefore I started to together with him investigate about the quality of his relationship with his parents. His father ran a restaurant and had a very busy lifestyle, and he was mostly busy, and his mother was a teacher, and she had also a very busy career life. And he and his sister was usually sent to the grandparents' place after school, and he remembered that his parents were usually very tired and exhausted and irritated, or could get very angry easily after they came home from work. So he said that he and his sister should walk on eggshells because their parents, especially his mother, could get angry at the slight provocation and literally for nothing. And it could also happen that his mother beat him for small things, for example, not cleaning his room and things like that. But surprisingly, he could also say that, but I think that I expected my mom a lot. She was tired. My parents were just tired. I understand them. And they did everything for us, for me and my sister. So my presupposition and my hypothesis was that, here lies the problem. There should be some overwhelming and much unpleasing feeling that had unconsciously through time turned against him, such that his conscious mind does not allow it to come to surface, to be seen, to be recognized and acknowledged. And my hypothesis got just reinforced every time he tried to defend his parents and justify their actions. He expressed that he loves and understands them, that they had been tired of good reasons because they tried all the time to provide him and his sister a good life. So that was his fault, that he could not serve them and understand them better. To me, it felt like that the more I tried to get closer to the roots and orient his attention to the underpinnings and roots of the problem and his unprocessed anger, rage and hate, the more it became difficult to disentangle the mess. So you see, that hate and possible rage was deeply repressed and limited him to see and recognize these feelings. I asked him if it happened to a friend, if it happened to a friend of him and that friend came to him and expressed his frustration and sadness and deep disappointment toward his parents, how he would react. Could he imagine supporting and showing affection and empathy toward his friend, or he would reject his friend's experience? He immediately confirmed that he would support his friend in this situation, as he can see that his friend experienced injustice. But he cannot do it for himself because it is about his parents and he cannot be angry at them. So from here onward, I try to work based on internal family system, theoretical framework in therapy, where I try to give him a preliminary metaphoric picture about different parts of his mind and mental processes that apparently operate contradictory, namely a part which loves his parents and another part which is totally disappointed in his parents and perhaps entails plenty of unpleasant feelings, including rage and hate. So this approach gave me a better tool to address his paradoxical inner experiences and those big old suppressed emotions. So the goal of our therapy sessions became helping him to let that taboo and uncomfortable part of him to express itself and take a little more place and to come up and burst out all of those buried emotions. So this was of course something that he found as an interesting and meaningful goal and approach. So he could finally see a clear link between his low self-esteem and relationship problems and the way he managed his emotions. Mostly, those old feelings which had been suppressed through years of exposure to injustice, traumas like neglect trauma. But as you might know, only recognition and understanding is not enough to make the change in therapy, right? Also, it is very important stage. But the fact is that we cannot heal what we cannot feel. So through therapy, he came into contact with and met those feelings and felt them, and then through this experience he could release them from his body. He understood that he had, suffered from imbalance in his relations, as his nervous system learned through traumatic experiences that being in his own power and in touch with his emotions and needs means imbalance, means insufficiency and control. So he feared fear and equal relationships, and unconsciously placed himself in friendship dynamics by which his sense of inadequacy and shame and self-hate got confirmed repeatedly. So creating this shift can be a mentally and emotionally very demanding process in the therapy, because your therapist should help you to identify the problem first, and then to help you to move through all those defense layers of protection. So there is always hope to outgrow and move from self-critic and self-hate to self-adequacy, self-esteem, self-worth, self-compassion, and connection with ourselves. I hope that these reflections have given you a slight insight into the path of self-development and healing. Please keep in touch, and if you have any questions or if you want me to talk on a specific topic, please let me know. Thank you. Take care. Bye.